A silent invasion DR. Sarah Chun stared at the data streaming across her screens at the Global Defense Initiative headquarters. The patterns were too perfect, too organized to be random cosmic noise. For 3 weeks, communication arrays around Earth had been picking up these strange signals from deep space. "Computer, run pattern analysis on transmission cluster 7, she commanded, pushing her glasses up her nose. The xenolinguist had spent 15 years studying alien communication theories, but she never thought she would actually need them. The computer beeped. Pattern recognition complete. Mathematical probability of natural origin, 0.003%. Sarah's heart skipped. These signals were artificial, intelligent, alien. 2,000 miles away, Lieutenant Jung-hoon Kim floated in the observation deck of Seoul Station, Earth's newest orbital monitoring post. His partner, Seo Yeon Park, was reviewing routine sensor logs when Jung-hoon noticed something strange. "Seo Yeon, look at this," he said, pointing to his scanner display. "These energy readings from the outer system. They've been showing up every day for the past month." Seo Yeon barely glanced up from her work. "Solar interference. Happens all the time. No, it's too regular. Look at the timing." Jung-hoon pulled up a 3-dimensional map showing energy spikes near Jupiter's orbit. Every 12 hours, exactly. That's not natural. But Seo Yeon had already moved on to other tasks. Jung-hoon saved the data anyway. Something felt wrong. Far beyond the edge of human space, Commander Zex Morton stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying holographic displays of the third planet from Seoul. The Zirconian's 4 arms worked multiple control panels as he reviewed decades of surveillance data. "Status report," he ordered his subordinate. "Zircon, the humans remain unaware of our presence," Zircon replied, his voice a low growl. "Their technology is primitive. Their defenses are weak. They fight among themselves over resources and territory." Zex nodded approvingly. His species had evolved from apex predators on a harsh desert world where only the strongest survived. The Zirconians had conquered 17 star systems by recognizing one simple truth: weaker species did not deserve to exist. "Begin charging the memory void generators," Zex commanded. "This infestation will be cleansed within the day." The memory void was the Zirconian Empire's greatest achievement. Unlike crude weapons that nearly destroyed matter and energy, the memory void erased entire civilizations from existence itself. It removed all traces of their culture, their history, their achievements from the universe. When the process was complete, it would be as if the target species had never existed at all. They had used it 17 times before. 17 worlds now floated empty and lifeless, with no monuments, no ruins, no evidence that intelligence had ever lived there. Back on Earth, Sarah finally managed to decode fragments of the alien transmissions. Her translation software worked for hours, comparing the signals to thousands of mathematical and linguistic patterns. When the first words appeared on her screen, she nearly fell from her chair. Human population, 8.7 billion. Primary population centers, New York, Tokyo, London, Mumbai. Defense capabilities, minimal. Threat level, negligible. The aliens were cataloging humanity like specimens in a lab. Sarah ran to General Marcus, Webb's office, bursting through his doors without knocking. "General, we have a problem." "A big one." Webb looked up from his morning briefing. "Dr. Chun, what's this about?" "We're being watched, studied. There are alien ships in our system right now, and they're planning something." She handed him the translated data. Webb scanned the information, his face growing pale. "How long have they been out there?" "Based on the signal timestamps, at least 30 years. Maybe longer." Before Webb could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Red lights flashed in the corridors as emergency broadcasts echoed from every speaker. "Attention all personnel. Unknown vessels detected in the outer system. All defense forces to battle stations. Sarah and Webb rushed to the main command center where dozens of technicians monitored displays showing the space around Earth. Near Jupiter's orbit, massive shapes were decloaking. Ships the size of cities, their hulls black as obsidian and gleaming with unnatural light. 27 vessels confirmed, reported a technician. No response to our hail attempts, and every screen in the facility switched the same image. A tall, four-armed creature with golden eyes and scaled skin appeared. When it spoke, its words were in perfect English. Humans of Earth, your species has been observed and judged. You have been marked for erasure. Prepare for the memory void. Your existence will be removed from this universe. You will have never been. The transmission ended. For a moment, the command center was silent. Then the attack began. Instead of energy beams or missiles, something far worse swept across Earth. A strange wave of force that made the air itself shimmer. Sarah watched in horror as the photographs on Webb's desk began to fade. The American flag in the corner of the room started to lose its colors. "Sir," called a technician, panic in his voice, "we're getting reports from around the world. The pyramids in Egypt are ... disappearing. The Great Wall of China is fading away. It's like they're becoming ghosts." Sarah understood immediately. The aliens weren't just destroying humanity's present. They were erasing their past. Every monument, every achievement, every proof that humans had ever existed was being systematically removed from reality itself. She grabbed her research tablet and watched her own work vanish before her eyes. Years of linguistic studies, cultural analyses, and scientific papers were becoming blank pages. But then something caught her attention. Reports were coming in from around the world about certain locations that seemed unaffected. Ancient sites where humans had gathered for thousands of years. Stonehenge still stood strong. Uluru remained solid. The cave paintings at Lascaux continued to glow on the walls. In Seoul, Minjun Park, a young quantum engineer, was studying energy readings from these resistant sites when he made a discovery that would change everything. The memory void isn't working. Everywhere, he reported to his team, places where humans created strong emotional and cultural connections. They're fighting back. It's like our collective memory is creating some kind of shield. As the first day of the attack ended, scattered groups of survivors gathered at these ancient places of power. Sarah, Jung-hoon, Min-jun, and thousands of others realized they faced an enemy unlike any in human history. Zarkonians wanted to do more than kill humanity. They wanted to erase the very idea that humans had ever existed. But they had underestimated one thing: humanity's stubborn refusal to be forgotten. The underground resistance. 3 days after the memory void attack began, Sarah Chun found herself in the ancient stone circle of Stonehenge. The massive stones stood untouched while the modern world around them flickered in and out of existence. London's skyline wavered like a mirage in the distance. Hundreds of survivors had gathered here, drawn by emergency broadcasts from the few communication systems still working. They came from all over Europe: scientists, soldiers, farmers, teachers. All of them had lost everything except their lives and memories. The pattern is clear. Sarah addressed the crowd from atop one of the fallen stones. Sites where humans gathered for thousands of years are resisting the memory void. Places where we told stories, held ceremonies, created strong emotional connections. Jung-hoon Kim had made it to Earth just before Seoul Station was erased from existence. He stood near Sarah, studying readings on a portable scanner. "The energy signatures are incredible," he reported. "It's like these places are generating some kind of protective field." An elderly archaeologist named Dr. Elizabeth Hayes stepped forward. "I've spent my life studying these sites. Our ancestors came here to remember, to pass down stories. to connect with something larger than themselves. Min Jun Park, who had escaped from Seoul, was working with a team of engineers to understand what they were seeing. "It's not just the stones or the location," he explained to the group. "It's us. When humans gather together and remember, we're creating something the aliens can't erase." Sarah nodded. "Our memories, our emotions, our stories. They're creating anchor points in reality. The Zarkonians can attack matter and energy, but they can't attack human consciousness when it's focused and united." Similar gatherings were forming around the world. At Uluru in Australia, Aboriginal elders led ceremonies that strengthened the protective field around the sacred rock. In the caves of Lascaux, French survivors traced their fingers over ancient paintings that seemed to glow brighter each day. The resistance was born from desperation, and hope in equal measure. Jung Hoon established communication networks between the safe sites, using old radio equipment that somehow still worked within the protected zones. "We're getting reports from 14 locations worldwide," he announced. Approximately 50,000 survivors total, but they weren't just hiding. Sarah organized teams to study captured Zarkonian technology from the debris of their scout ships. What they discovered was both fascinating and horrifying. "They don't just destroy civilizations," reported Dr. Michael Torres, a physicist who had made it to Machu Picchu. "They collect data about each species before erasing them. Cultural patterns, technological achievements, biological data, everything." Sarah's blood ran cold. "They're building a database of extinct civilizations." The truth became clear when they decoded a Zarkonian data crystal. The aliens had detailed files on 17 different species. The Kalari, master architects who built cities that floated in the clouds. The Vorthik, peaceful traders who connected dozens of worlds. The Zenith, artists whose music could heal emotional wounds. All of them were gone, erased. Their worlds were empty spheres of rock and water, with no trace that intelligence had ever existed there. "Look at this," Min Jun called out, pointing to his analysis of the alien data. "The Zarkonians have been doing this for over 2,000 years. But there's something strange about their own records." Sarah studied the information. The Zarkonian files about themselves were oddly empty. No art, no music, no poetry. Just military reports and conquest data. They've erased their own culture, she realized. They've turned themselves into perfect predators by removing everything that made them individuals. Jung Hoon discovered something even more disturbing. According to this data, the Zarkonians weren't always like this. The oldest files show they once had families, emotions, creativity. But they systematically removed those traits to become more efficient killers. The implications were staggering. The aliens weren't just destroying other species. They had destroyed themselves first. At Stonehenge, Sarah gathered the core leadership of the human resistance. "We're not just fighting for our survival," she told them. "We're fighting for our right to remain human, to keep our emotions, our memories, our connections to each other." Dr. Hayes, the archaeologist, had been studying the protective fields around their safe sites. "I have a theory," she said. "The memory void works by attacking the concept of a species' existence. But it can't affect places where the memory is too strong, too deeply rooted." Min Jun looked up from his calculations. "Then we need to make more anchor points. We need to create new sacred sites, new places of memory." Jung Hoon was already planning. "If we can understand how the protective fields work, maybe we can expand them. Maybe we can fight back." Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced since the attack began. Hope. "The Zarkonians made one mistake," she announced to the gathered survivors. "They assumed we were just another weak species to be catalogued and erased. But they don't understand what makes humans different." "What's that?" asked Dr. Hayes. Sarah looked around at the ancient stones, at the people who had refused to give up, at the flickering remains of a world that refused to be forgotten. We don't just remember the past. We use it to build the future, and we never, ever surrender. Above them, Zarkonian ships continued their work, slowly erasing human civilization. But something new was growing in the ancient places of the Earth, something the aliens had never encountered. Before human stubborn fury, focused and organized, backed by 5,000 years of accumulated wisdom and the unbreakable will to survive. The Memory Keeper's 2 weeks after the resistance formed, Sarah Chun stood in the center of Stonehenge holding something impossible, a fragment of pure crystallized memory. The shard glowed with a soft blue light and hummed with the collected thoughts and emotions of everyone who had ever visited the ancient site. We've learned to weaponize our own consciousness, she announced to the gathered leaders from around the world. The video conference connected all 14 safe sites through quantum encrypted channels that somehow remained invisible to the ZAR_KONIANS. Minjun Park. Broadcasting from Uluru held up a similar crystal. The Aboriginal elders taught us how to focus our memories into physical form. They call it crystallized dreaming. We can store not just information, but actual experiences and emotions. Junghun, now at the Lascaux Caves, added his discovery. These memory crystals can override the memory void effect in small areas. We tested it yesterday. We restored a section of the Eiffel Tower for 6 hours before the alien field reasserted itself. Dr. Hayes, the archaeologist, had made the most important discovery of all. The Zarkonians have a fatal weakness, she reported from Machu Picchu. They've erased their own emotional capacity so completely that they can't understand or defend against concentrated human feeling. Sarah nodded grimly. Which brings us to our unexpected ally. On the main screen, a figure appeared that made several people gasp. It was clearly Zarkonian. 4 arms, scaled golden skin, reptilian features. But something was different about this one. Its eyes showed depth, confusion, even pain. This is Zircon, Sarah announced. 3 days ago, he crash-landed near Stonehenge. He's been affected by our memory fields. Zircon spoke in halting English, his voice filled with an emotion his species had forgotten. I remember now. Before the emptiness. Before we became hollow. My people we once had younglings. We had art. We had songs. The Zarkonian defector's story was heartbreaking. His species had voluntarily undergone the memory void process on themselves 2 millennia ago, believing that emotions made them weak. They had systematically erased their own culture, their own capacity for love, joy, or compassion. The Empire tells us we are perfect now, Zircon continued, tears flowing down his scaled cheeks. But I have seen your human memories, felt your connections to each other. We did not become perfect. We became dead inside. Sarah placed a comforting hand on Zircon's arm. Can you help us understand their technology? Yes, he replied. But more than that, there are others like me. Zarkonians who kept hidden fragments of our old selves. They hide their emotions because showing them means execution. But they remember. Jung-Hoon leaned forward. How many others? Perhaps 1 in every 100. They feel empty, but do not know why. If they could experience what I have experienced here, ... Zircon gestured to the ancient stones around. Sarah, they might remember who they used to be. The plan that emerged was audacious beyond belief. The humans would build memory fortresses, expanded, versions of their protective sites that could shield larger areas and more people. But they would do more than just hide. They would actively fight back, using the power of human consciousness. Itself. Minjun had been working with teams of engineers and physicists to understand the science behind their abilities. Human brains generate quantum field fluctuations when we experience strong emotions or recall vivid memories, he explained. When thousands of us focus together, We can actually alter local spacetime. Dr. Torres, connecting from Easter Island, added his research. We've confirmed it. The stone heads here are acting as amplifiers for human psychic energy. Our ancestors didn't just build monuments. They built focusing arrays for human consciousness. Sarah felt the pieces clicking together. Our species isn't just naturally resistant to the memory void. We're naturally adapted to use memory and emotion as tools. That's why we tell stories, why we build monuments, why we never forget our dead. The first test came when a lone Zarkonian scoutship approached Stonehenge. Instead of hiding, Sarah led 200 volunteers in a focused memory exercise. They stood among the ancient stones and together remembered every human achievement they could think of. Art, music, scientific discoveries, acts of love and heroism. The crystallized memory fragments they had created began to resonate, their blue light growing brighter. The protective field around Stonehenge expanded rapidly, racing outward like a wave. When it reached the alien ship, something extraordinary happened. The vessel's weapon systems shut down. Its hull began to flicker, as if the memory void was being reversed. Then it crashed. Jung-hoon and a rescue team reached the ship first. Inside, they found 2 Zarkonians. One was dead, apparently from shock. The other was alive but changed. Like Zircon, this warrior was weeping, experiencing emotions his species had forgotten. What have we done? The alien whispered as Jung-hoon helped him from the wreckage. What did we do to ourselves? Word of the victory spread through all the human strongholds. For the first time since the attack began, they had not just survived, they had fought back successfully. Sarah stood before the assembled leaders that evening as reports came in from around the world. Memory fortresses were being constructed at ancient sites on every continent. Teams of memory keepers were learning to focus their consciousness into powerful defensive and offensive tools. Zarkonians think they're facing a primitive species, she said, holding up a memory crystal that pulsed with the collected determination of 50,000 human survivors. They don't realize they're fighting the one species that refuses to let anything be forgotten. Zircon, now wearing a simple human-made medallion bearing the image of Stonehenge, added his voice to hers. My people have spent 2,000 years trying to become perfect killing machines. But they forgot the most important truth in the universe. What's that? Asked Min-June. The redeemed Zarkonian smiled, an expression his face had not made in millennia. Nothing is more powerful than someone who has something worth remembering. And humans remember everything. Above them, the alien fleet continued its work of erasure. But below, in the ancient places where humans had always gathered to share their stories and honor their past, something unprecedented was building. A weapon made of pure human memory and emotion, sharpened by 5,000 years of refusing to give up, and focused by the unbreakable bonds between people who would rather die than be forgotten. Asterisk. The Fury unleashed 1 month after the first victory at Stonehenge. Sarah Chun stood on the command deck of the Remembrance, humanity's first starship powered by crystallized memory. The vessel had been constructed in the caves beneath. Alluro, using a combination of salvaged alien technology and pure human willpower made manifest. Fleet status report, she called out to Jung-hoon, who served as her tactical officer. 12 memory ships operational, he replied, studying displays that showed vessels emerging from hidden construction sites around the world. The Defiance from Machu Picchu, the Never Forgotten from Easter Island, the Ancient Dreams from the Sahara Pyramids. Each ship was small compared to the massive Zarkonian vessels, but they possessed something the aliens had never encountered. Crews who could literally rewrite local reality through focused collective memory and emotion. Min-June Park, now chief engineer of the fleet, reported from his station. Memory cores at full power. We've learned to do more than just defend. We can actively restore things the Sarkonians have erased. The breakthrough had come when Dr. Hayes discovered that human consciousness could not only resist the memory void, but reverse it. During a test at Stonehenge, 100 volunteers had focused together on remembering the Colosseum in Rome. Their combined will had been so strong that the ancient arena had suddenly reappeared, solid and real, 800 miles away. If we can restore our own history, Sarah had realized, we can restore anything, even things we never personally experienced. The implications were staggering. Humans could bring back entire civilizations by collectively remembering them. Zircon, now serving as their alien technology specialist, provided crucial intelligence about Sarkonian fleet movements. "Commander Zex grows desperate," he reported during the pre-battle briefing. "The Empire expected humanity to be erased within days. Your resistance has lasted 37 days. Other species are beginning to ask questions." Sarah smiled grimly. "Good. Let them wonder why humans refuse to disappear." The human offensive began at dawn. The memory ships launched from their hidden bases, each one carrying crews of survivors who had spent weeks practicing collective focus techniques. They were not just soldiers. They were living repositories of human culture, emotion, and stubborn determination. Jung-hoon coordinated the first attack on a Zarkonian destroyer near Mars. "Remember everything," he broadcast to the fleet. "Remember every human who ever lived. Remember every story ever told. Remember why we fight." The remembrance approached the alien vessel. While its crew of 50 focused their memories on a single image, humanity's refusal to surrender. The ship's memory core blazed with blue light as their collective will took physical form. When the human weapon struck the Zarkonian ship, something unprecedented happened. The destroyer's hull began to shift and change. Alien symbols were replaced by human writing. Sterile corridors filled with the warmth of human habitation. The cold, emotionless Zarkonian crew suddenly found themselves experiencing feelings they had never known. "What is happening to us?" screamed the alien captain as his bridge filled with phantom images of human children laughing, human artists creating, human lovers embracing. Half his crew collapsed, overwhelmed by the sudden rush of emotions their species had surgically removed millennia ago. The others wept as they remembered what they had lost. The destroyer surrendered without firing a shot. Similar victories occurred throughout the solar system. Each human ship carried teams of memory keepers who had specialized in different aspects of human experience. Artists who could weaponize beauty. Musicians who could turn melodies into psychic hammers. Historians who could make the past more real than the present. But Sarah's most ambitious plan was yet to come. Working with Min-Jun and teams of quantum physicists, they had discovered that the 17 species erased by the Zarkonians still existed as quantum echoes in the OE, memory fragments left behind on their worlds. "We're going to attempt something that's never been done," Sarah announced to the combined human fleet as they approached the first dead world. "We're going to resurrect an entire species through the power of human empathy." The planet below had once been home to the Kolari, the Cloud City builders. Now it was just rock and empty atmosphere. But in the quantum foam around the world, traces remained, ghostly impressions of a civilization that had been loved and lost. Sarah led 1,000 memory keepers in the most complex mental exercise ever attempted. They opened their hearts and minds to the scattered quantum echoes of the Kolari. They chose to remember a people they had never met, to mourn for losses that weren't their own, to love beings who had been dead for centuries. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Blue light erupted from every human ship as their collective consciousness reached across time and space. Below them, the empty planet began to change. Ghostly spires appeared in the clouds. The whisper of alien voices carried on the wind. For a brief, shining moment, the Kolari lived again, not as they had been, but as humans remembered them. The resurrection lasted only minutes before the massive energy expenditure exhausted the human fleet. But it had been enough. Across the galaxy, species that had hidden from the Zarkonian Empire felt something impossible. Hope. The humans did the impossible, alien observers reported to their governments. They brought back the dead through sheer force of will. Jung-hoon received the first responses from hidden worlds throughout the galaxy. Sarah, we're getting communications from 47 different species. They want to know if the stories are true. They want to know if humans can really defeat the memory void. Sarah looked out at the stars where Zarkonian ships were retreating in confusion, their crews struggling with the return of emotions they had thought eliminated forever. Some alien vessels were simply shutting down as their crews refused to continue fighting. Broadcast this message to the galaxy, she ordered. Tell them that humanity remembers. Tell them that no one stays forgotten while humans draw breath. Tell them that Earth is coming, and we're bringing back everyone the Zarkonians ever stole from the universe. Min-jung reported from engineering. Sarah, the quantum resonance from our resurrection attempt. It's spreading. We didn't just bring back echoes of the Kaleri. We've awakened quantum memories on every world the Zarkonians ever attacked. The implications hit Sarah like a thunderbolt. Their act of remembrance had created a chain reaction across space and time. On 17 worlds, the ghosts of erased civilizations were stirring. The dead were beginning to remember themselves. The Zarkonian Empire, which had spent 2 millennia perfecting the art of erasure, suddenly found themselves facing something they had never planned for: the return of every victim they had ever claimed. And leading the charge was humanity, the species too stubborn to be forgotten and too angry to forgive. Earth's vengeance. The final battle began above Zarkona's prime, the alien homeworld that had become a monument to emptiness. Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the remembrance as the largest human fleet ever assembled, prepared for the ultimate confrontation. Enemy. Fleet status, she called to Jung-hoon. 300 Zarkonian vessels in defensive formation around their planet, he reported. But Sarah, half of them aren't responding to their command ship's orders. Their crews are in emotional chaos. The quantum chain reaction started by humanity's resurrection of the Kaleri had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On 17 dead worlds, the ghosts of erased civilizations were growing stronger. The Vorthic traders, the Zenith artists, the crystal singers of Melodia, all of them were returning as quantum echoes powered by human remembrance. Min-jung monitored the energy readings from his engineering station. The memory void generators on the planet's surface are destabilizing. Our resurrection wave is interfering with their erasure field. They can't maintain both systems simultaneously. Zircon, now wearing the uniform of a human fleet officer, provided the crucial intelligence. Commander Zex has barricaded himself in the central command complex. He's trying to activate the Master Void, a weapon that can erase entire star systems at once. If he succeeds, he'll destroy this whole sector rather than admit defeat. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, not just for humanity, but for every species the Zarkonians had ever wronged. Then we end this now. All ships begin the final memory focus. Across the human fleet, 10,000 memory keepers began the largest collective consciousness exercise in history. They weren't just remembering their own species anymore. They were remembering every civilization that had ever existed in this part of the galaxy. The Defiance crew focused on the Kalari and their floating cities. The never-forgotten remembered the Vorthic trade routes that had connected dozens of worlds in peaceful commerce. The ancient dreams carried the memories of the Zenith, whose music could heal both bodies and souls. But it was more than just remembering. The humans were choosing to love these lost peoples, to mourn their passing, to carry their stories forward into the future. It was an act of adoption on a galactic scale, The results were immediate and overwhelming. Blue light erupted from every human vessel as their combined will took physical form. Below them, the dead planet of Zarkonis Prime began to change. Ghostly structures appeared on the surface, not Zarkonian buildings, but the architecture of the 17 erased species. Parks filled with alien flowers that had been extinct for centuries. Monuments to civilizations that had been forgotten by everyone except humanity. Jung-hoon watched his sensors in amazement. The quantum signatures are incredible. We're not just creating echoes anymore. We're making them real. The erased species are actually returning to physical existence. On the planet's surface, Commander Zex watched in horror as his sterile, emotionless world filled with color and life. Alien voices sang in languages that had been dead for millennia. Children of extinct species played in gardens that shouldn't exist. Impossible, he growled, his forearms working frantically at the Master Void controls. Nothing can reverse the erasure process. Nothing. But then he made a fatal mistake. In his desperation to activate the Master Void, Zex exposed himself to the resurrection field. The same energy that was bringing back the erased civilizations struck the Zarkonian commander directly. For the first time in his life, Zex felt emotion. Not just any emotion. He felt the accumulated grief of every species his people had destroyed. He experienced the love the Kaleri had felt for their children, the joy the Vorthik had found in peaceful trade, the transcendent beauty the Zenith had created with their music. The commander of the Zarkonian Empire collapsed to his knees, weeping for crimes he had never understood were crimes. Minjun detected the energy surge from the planet. Sarah, the Master Void generators are overloading. Zex can't complete the activation sequence. He's too overwhelmed by the emotional feedback. Sarah nodded grimly. And it's time to finish this. Begin the final phase. The human fleet joined together in one last impossible act of memory. They remembered not just the erased species, but the Zarkonians themselves, as they had been before they chose emptiness over emotion. They remembered a proud warrior race that had once known love, art, and the joy of raising young. The effect on the remaining Zarkonian fleet was instantaneous. Ship after ship went silent as their crews experienced the return of feelings they had surgically removed millennia ago. Some wept, others laughed. Many simply sat in wonder at the rainbow of emotions they had forgotten existed. On Zarkonis Prime, Commander Zex stood slowly, his golden eyes now filled with tears and understanding. He walked to his communication console and broadcast a message to his entire fleet. All ships, stand down. The war is over. His voice cracked with newly rediscovered emotion. We have committed an unforgivable crime against the universe. We erased not just other species, but ourselves. The humans have shown us what we threw away. Jung-hoon received surrender signals from across the Zarkonian fleet. Sarah, they're laying down their arms. The entire empire is capitulating. But Sarah wasn't finished. Standing before the combined human fleet, she made an announcement that would reshape the galaxy. We didn't come here just to defeat the Zarkonians. She broadcast to every ship, every world, every listening post in the sector. We came to make sure no one ever gets forgotten again. Today, we established the Memorial Accord. Any species anywhere in the galaxy will be remembered and protected. Earth stands as guardian of memory itself. Minjun watched as quantum signatures stabilized across 17 worlds. The resurrected civilizations are achieving permanent existence. They're really back, Sarah. All of them. On the planet below, representatives of the returning species began to appear. Kalari architects floated in their cloud cities. Vorthik traders opened markets that spanned star systems. Zenith musicians filled the void with healing songs. And among them all, former Zarkonian warriors wept as they remembered how to feel, how to love, how to create instead of destroy. Zircon stood beside Sarah on the bridge. looking down at his homeworld as it transformed from a monument to emptiness into a garden of remembered civilizations. "You have given us back our souls," he said quietly. "How can we ever repay such a gift?" Sarah smiled, thinking of Earth, still flickering but growing stronger as human memory fortresses expanded across its surface. "Help us remember. Help us make sure that nothing and no one ever gets erased again. That's all humanity has ever wanted, for the universe to remember that we were here." Jung-hoon received a priority transmission from Earth. "Sarah, General Webb is reporting that the memory void effects are reversing worldwide. The pyramids are solid again. The Great Wall is rebuilding itself. Every monument, every museum, every piece of human history is coming back stronger than before. The battle was over. But more than that, a new age had begun. An age where humanity served as the galaxy's memory keepers, ensuring that no civilization would ever be forgotten, no culture would ever be lost, and no species would ever face erasure alone. The Zarcomians had learned the hardest lesson of all. You cannot destroy what refuses to be forgotten. And humanity, stubborn and sentimental, and absolutely refusing to let anyone disappear from the universe, would make sure that lesson was never forgotten either. In the end, Earth's greatest weapon had been exactly what it appeared to be: the simple, unbreakable human refusal to let go of the things they loved. Asterisk.